Virginia. The Virgin Queen honored the broad land with her name and conveyed it, all of it, almost all the Atlantic seaboard north of Spanish Florida, to her gallant, dashing, and mercurial favorite, Sir Walter Raleigh, by letters patent of 1584, entitling him "To discover, search, find out, and view such remote, heathen, and barbarous lands, countries, and territories not actually possessed of any Christian prince." But Raleigh's colonization effort, his Roanoke Island plantation, ended in misfortune and mystery. The Roman letters C.R.O. carved on a tree trunk high on a cliff were the only clue to the disappearance of the 117 men and women set ashore there in 1587. The next setback for England's colonial aspirations came with the abandonment of the Plymouth Company's Sagadahoc colony, planted at the mouth of the Kennebec River in Maine in 1607, contemporaneously with the Virginia Company's Jamestown venture and very similar in size and scope. The Sagadahoc colony was abandoned after one icy winter. Thus, all England's colonial ambitions rode with the Virginia Company's flagship, the Susan Constant, as she led the two smaller ships of the flotilla out of the Atlantic, past the Capes, through the Strait, into the Bay of Chesapeake on an April morning in 1607. The sails of the Mayflower would not appear on the American horizon for another 13 years. The Pilgrim's landing at Plymouth Rock was still more than a decade off in the unpredictable future when the Virginia Company's 3 vessels sailed into the unpredictable waters of the Chesapeake. And that little fleet was 2 full decades ahead of the first Puritan contingent, which would not arrive at Massachusetts Bay until 1630. It is almost certain that if there had been no Jamestown, there would have been no Plymouth, in the opinion of colonial historian Thomas J. Wertenbaker. How, then, the Founding Fathers of Massachusetts contrived to steal the thunder from the Founding Fathers of Virginia is not easy to make out. Much of the larceny dates back to the vicious sectionalism of the post-Civil War period, when the Boston Brahmins wrote American history without a South. The legend of the preeminence of the Massachusetts colony began even earlier, with the early New England chroniclers and orators, who reflected pride in the fact that theirs alone among all the planters had been a distinct, a purely moral purpose, a wholly religious dedication. The Puritans of New England founded a city upon a hill. They were conscious of a worldwide audience, the eyes of all people upon us. Theirs was an errand into the wilderness. 19th-century American literature, notably the versifying of Longfellow, enlarged on this theme, and America seized upon the identification with Puritans and Pilgrims as the most heroic of national origins. Not only was the Puritans' moral purpose loftier than the Virginians', so was their socio-economic status. Although the New Englanders were middling people, of middle-class origin, as were the bulk of the English settlers on this continent, they were men of some substance and of respectable station, the best people under heaven compared to the refuse of the English nation dumped into Virginia. The Virginia contingent consisted of soldiers of fortune, mercenaries, vagabonds, desperadoes, convicts, and debtors. The scum of people, in the words of Sir Francis Bacon, who deplored the raffish crew recruited by the Virginia Company for this colonial enterprise. Modern scholarship, in reappraising the Old Dominion, has rejected the legend of the rollicking cavalier origins of the Virginia colony. It now questions the imputation of an exclusively imperialistic, exclusively mercantilistic motivation on the part of the founders. Clearly, the Virginia Company was a joint stock company seeking profits for its adventurers, investors, and a new world market for English commerce, but its royal charter of 1606 specifies with equal clarity that it was being incorporated for the glory to be achieved in the propagating of Christian religion to such people as yet live in darkness. Clearly it was a redemptive mission, an evangelical errand, a holy as well as a commercial venture, to sow spirituals and reap temporals, as the logic of 17th-century Christian imperialism was explicated by the Reverend Sam.